Okay, and then the ideas I wanted to talk about today. Um, so the due diligence, we always talk about, you've got to do your due diligence when you're buying a property, especially in Texas, because we have a lot fewer protections for the buyer than I see in some other states. So it's very buyer beware. But I'm going to talk today about just like that first round of due diligence. So I'm talking about, you've done your market research, you've decided like what area of town you want to buy in, what your price range might be, what kind of things you're looking for. And you've basically set up your search. Maybe like I've actually set up a search for you in the MLS, or you know what you're looking for. That's kind of like the research phase. And then when you get it narrowed down to, I'm actually looking at houses at this point, you're not going to delve completely into every individual house and spend a lot of time running numbers because you would burn yourself out really fast. So there's kind of this initial due diligence phase that I do where I'm sure most investors do, where I'm just trying to determine like, is this house worth pursuing, a more in-depth due diligence phase? So I'm just trying to narrow it out, like basically separate the wheat from the chaff. This house is never going to be a good deal versus this house might work. I need to investigate it more. So, if you're a regular home buyer, this step would happen after you've done some showings and you find a house you like. Then we would start some due diligence because you'd say, "Oh, I want to buy this house. I like it. Is it at the right price? Is it appropriate? Whatever." For investors, though, you're actually going to do this phase before we even go look at the house because you just don't want to waste time doing a bunch of showings and, on houses that the numbers aren't going to make sense anyway. So if you can do some due diligence before we even look, that can really save everybody a lot of time and frustration. And also in this market, I mean, like I talked about earlier, the homes are going so quickly that you don't always have time to go do a showing and wait for that. Sometimes you've got to decide really quickly. There's already multiple offers. So you need to know what to do before we even go look. So in this phase, I want to say you're going to use as much as you can get for free. So we're going to look and use all of our resources to look at the house and start running numbers. So step one, I already said, you're kind of doing your research, you're narrowing it down, you're kind of creating that first step of the funnel where I'm narrowing down which homes I'm going to look at. The second step is going to be looking at, again, those free resources that you can. So the MLS listing has a lot of information about the property. You could look at the appraisal district website, bcad.org, and look up tax information, zoning, things like that. You could look for any disclosures that are already on the listing or any of the agent remarks. Sometimes they'll say like this has foundation issues or, needs a new roof or whatever. So you want to look at all of the information you have at your fingertips to just even start running numbers. And then after you kind of evaluate all that and still decide, yes, I'm going to go forward with this, you're going to pull the comps, both sales and rental comps from that area and evaluate and choose like an approximate ARV. Again, without looking at the house in person, you can't always get a real good idea of what ARV and rent would be, but you can look at the comps and get kind of a ballpark, $10,000 either way number. And then you're going to run your numbers using accurate sales and rent numbers and repair costs. So for step two, which was, that looking at all of the information you can, I'm just going to mention a few things that you can look at, starting with the MLS. So one of the first things I do, if you tell me I'm interested in this list of properties, when I pull up an address, one of the first things I'm going to do is look at the listing and property history report. And that's going to tell me actually the whole life of the property, even going back a decade or so. Every time it's come on and off the market, the listing was canceled, if it was under option and back on market. So you can kind of see here, I took a screenshot of that on the left side. This is an example of a property that we looked at yesterday, that when I pulled up the history report, it just, when you see something like this, okay, last year this property went on and off the market several times and then relisted and went on and off the market already, you're just kind of, you can kind of assume something's wrong with it, right? Even if it doesn't say anything on the listing, there's some reason that all of these buyers, one after another, are backing out. So that can give you a lot of information. If you're somebody who, doesn't want renovations or wants something more turnkey, that would not be the property for you because obviously something's wrong with it. So that's just an easy way to start ruling out potential properties. Another one is, again, on the MLS, you can see in additional documents. Sometimes they'll have a seller's disclosure, and the seller's disclosure, a lot of sellers just don't write anything. They just check marks and, don't put anything. But there is a space where they have to put in the age of the roof. So that's at least one thing that you can get a really good idea if it's newer or really old. If you've got a roof that's 20 years old, you're probably going to be replacing a roof. And then also, like, this particular house happened to have an engineer's report because it had foundation issues. So really, I love when agents actually put this on the MLS. It's kind of rare that they do, but it's really nice when they put the like former inspection reports on the MLS, because then you can just look at those before even going out there. And as an investor, I mean, do you even need to see the house at that point? I mean, you have a lot of information at your fingertips that you can process right then and there. So just really investigate the listing, get all of the information you can out of it. Also go to BCAD, make sure everything lines up with the listing. We've talked about before, but going on BCAD to get the taxes, the accurate taxes, is really important for running your numbers. And then step 3, we talked about getting trying to get an accurate idea of the ARV and the fair market rent. And so one of the things that I learned when I moved from being just an investor buying homes to actually being a realtor is I realized that realtors can really, realtors can control the information that you have, right? And so you've got to really trust your realtor, and you've got to know that they're sending you accurate information. I was surprised by how much, though, that can happen when I realized like what's going on behind the scenes. Luckily, I had Robin, so I had a great realtor. But one of the things that I think is probably the most dubious is that the idea of pulling comps. So I could pull comps to make a house look like it any value. I could pull certain comps to make it look lower, or certain comps to make it look higher. That's, if you don't have all of the information, then the realtor could cherry pick those comps and really skew the ARV. And so knowing that, what I like to do for my clients is I will select, and so I've kind of screenshotted it here on the right-hand side. I'll select the whole subdivision that the home is in. And I will send you every house that's been sold for the past year in that subdivision, taking none out, like the whole full story for that subdivision. And so then you can see like, okay, here is the actual range. Like here's worst case scenario, here's best case scenario. You get a full representation of the information. And then also, once you have all that information, I do this with investors because I trust that you can go in and you realize like how to pull a similar house. Like you understand you need to look at the square footage and the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and how nice the house is. You can look at all of that and pull comps. If you need help, I can help with that. But most investors can kind of create their own ARV just from the raw data like that. So that's really easy to do. Again, takes a couple of moments for me to go in and send this to you. So I would get the comps or the sales prices from the neighborhood, and then also using the same process, I didn't screenshot it, but using the same process, I can also pull all of the rents from the neighborhood. And again, that gives you your range of rent prices. And If you're doing renovations, it gives you kind of the like a blueprint for your renovations, because you can see, oh, the higher rent homes in this neighborhood all have granite. So if I want to make it into the 1700 range, I've got to put granite when I'm doing the renovations, versus, oh, in this neighborhood, none of the houses have granite, doesn't matter, you know. So just having that data is super important, whether you go forward or not. So that's step 3. And then once you have all of that together, you have your ARV that, again, don't trust somebody else to just give you that. Come up with your own ARV, understand the neighborhood, understand why you're using that ARV. I think that's really important. And the same thing with the fair market rent. I think you'll feel much more confident in your numbers if you come up with that yourself, and then maybe have somebody, second check it for you. BiggerPockets is a great place. The forums, if you're considering something and you're not sure about your numbers, I've gone on there before and said, like, hey, this is what I'm using. What does everybody think? Back when I was a newer investor. So plug in those into your spreadsheet. I have on here, make your own spreadsheet. BiggerPockets has the great tools. They have the calculators, but I think that when you use somebody else's calculator, or you use somebody else's spreadsheet, you don't understand it as well as if you build it yourself. You don't quite, maybe I should say, I personally don't exactly understand, like, okay, if I put a number here, where's it going? I just don't feel like I have as much of a grasp on it as if I make my own. And so I would encourage you, use those as maybe a model, but make your own that highlights what's important to you, because other people that make their own spreadsheets might have different goals than you. So make your own that highlights your goals and stick with it. And then like when you're choosing numbers to plug into your spreadsheet, I heard this on a BiggerPockets episode. I can't remember which one, or I would give credit, but somebody said, like, be correct, not conservative. And I really liked that, because I tend to want to skew conservative. I mean, talking about numbers and investing, of course, but I tend to skew conservative and want to kind of pad my numbers a little bit. And so at first that was making it really difficult for me to find a deal, because I was padding them so much that nothing would ever work out. And so I think that that can be something that maybe you do if you're a little bit afraid to do your first deal, or, a little bit afraid to jump in. You might, oh, I'm going to be conservative. And so I've seen before, potential investors do that, where I'm showing them, like, the rent is going to be 1,400, like the house next door is 1,400, the house down the street is 1,400. Well, I'm going to put 1,300 just to be safe. Well, then you're not ever going to get a deal, because you're not evaluating it properly. So, don't be like rose-colored glasses, but also don't make the numbers so high to where nothing's going to work. I hope that makes sense. Then I would also say, because, wanting to get a property under contract, it can become very emotional. It's really hard to not get emotionally invested in this. And it's better if you kind of set your standards before you even run the spreadsheet. So, I am not going to take anything less than 12% ROI. That's my floor, that I'm going to get 12% ROI. And so if I run the numbers and then it's, 10% ROI, I'm not going to, oh, well, I guess, or I'll change this. I'll fidget with the numbers to make it say 12. Run them accurately, have your goals set in your mind before you start, and then just say no, like pass on that one. And then, like, the last step, I guess, is if it either passes your test or if it's close. If your goal is 12 and it comes in at 11 and you haven't seen it in person, that's one to go see. Like, maybe you're overestimating what the repairs are, or maybe you are underestimating what rent should be. And once you see the neighborhood, you're like, oh yeah, I think that this will rent for more. So don't rule it out completely just because it's like a tiny sliver under what you're looking for. Just kind of use that as a metric. Am I going to go forward, go look at it, hire an inspector, go through the process, or is there a better one out there for me? So I hope that all made sense. Again, that is just the sort of like initial due diligence that I start doing, just to, again, separate should I keep going and looking at this one or move on?